Well, good morning, everyone. And in today's report, it's a little bit shorter on the written side. I'm in Minnesota this morning giving a conference presentation. I'm the first to present, so I have to kind of get things cranked out early to get to the conference on time. So today, just a video report in your email this morning. But we got to start off in the tropics because we've been watching this area of very active tropical convection. And yesterday, we saw that the National Hurricane Center upgraded this very quickly to become Tropical Storm Fiona. And as we look here this morning, you can just see on the infrared satellite imagery how healthy the convection is. There's plenty of deep, cold air aloft here indicating some very strong storms. And so our big questions will be, what's the environment look like ahead of this as it continues to move forward? But I was just thinking a lot about that name Fiona, because when you look at the names that have been retired from the hurricane name list, Fiona made it on after Hurricane Francis was retired back in 2004. Now, for those that are in Florida, we remember 2004 very well. That was the year where Charlie, Francis, and Jan all hit Florida. In fact, Ivan did as well on its second trip around. And what's interesting about Francis, which again was the name retired that Fiona replaced, is that it took a track like this. So it started out very similar to where Fiona was, moved north of the Lesser Antilles, and then came through parts of the Bahamas. And the reason why I kind of show that is there are some indications that Fiona may take a similar track. Now, at this point, we do not expect it to strengthen much beyond a tropical storm, although this morning on the infrared imagery, the convection looks quite healthy and it's starting to close off a circulation quite well and the wind speeds are increasing. But you notice that the current projected path is to take it over the Lesser Antilles, specifically over the northern islands like Antigua and Barbuda, and then eventually possibly over parts of Puerto Rico. What happens to it beyond that is still quite uncertain. We've seen conditions in certain model runs that have brought this through the Bahamas, even coming here through the Strait and eventually into the Gulf, and then others that have turned it out. So let's go take a look at the latest updates here. What you notice is that the spread beyond about 5 days is considerable in the models. Now, when you're looking at this, the color shading represents storm wind speed max. So you can see the stronger turn would be to the north in terms of storm system strength. The weaker would be to take it here over into the Gulf of Mexico, but we have to watch that carefully any time of year should a system get there. So what I want to say is that today the reconnaissance flights, the things that are going to be happening with this particular system will be critical for us to continue to forecast it. I want to add to this, though, the latest forecast from the GFS, very similar, although it tends to favor more of the turn back out to open ocean. I want to talk to you about why that's probably the most likely scenario given the current information we have, and we'll see what would break down to make this any different. So to do that, I got to take you back again, like we did yesterday, to the upper levels of the atmosphere. As we play this through the day on Thursday, and work our way into the weekend, we continue to see the same recipe that was kind of put in the models the other day. The deeper trough that's off the west coast, it is out of phase now and no longer kind of attached to the trough that's coming over Alaska. That was the model issues we talked about earlier in the week. So what ends up occurring is this sits and spins just off the California coast late this week into the weekend, and that actually is going to deliver some rain to California, critical rain. Meanwhile, a large ridge builds in the midsection of the United States. Now, this right here is kind of the mid-level of the atmosphere reflection of Fiona. Now, why we're talking about this so much is because the position of this ridge is actually quite important to the timing of the trough to the north and what the wind shear will look like for Fiona. Now, what's important is sometimes ridges that sit just off the coast here can help guide systems into the United States. But if this ridge is spinning here, to the north of it, this trough will skid through really quickly. So here's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. See how these two troughs are disconnected? The ridge, a large blocking ridge in place here, is keeping Fiona away at this point. And what's going to happen is that by next Tuesday into Wednesday, as this trough slides through the eastern Canadian Prairie into Ontario and then clips through the upper Midwest, that'll be about the time that Fiona gets over the Bahamas. Now what's going to happen here is there'll be a large front, a cold front coming through on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and as that front comes through, it's going to take what is there with Fiona and push it on out to open ocean. Now again, we're using a single model run to kind of see if that's the scenario, but the ensembles are picking up on that possibility as well. So what could change is if the timing of this trough is different and Fiona slides farther to the south, gets caught on the southern edge of the winds circulating around this ridge, then instead of getting yanked out to open ocean, it gets pulled into the Gulf of Mexico. That's probably the two scenarios that I see, either something like this or something like that. The big question is if it could do anything in between. That's what Francis did back in 2004, is it came in between. I don't see the same scenario setting up for this. All right. So let's go from there and go straight into our next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, because we're continuing to see the models now hone in on this new pattern where those two troughs I mentioned, the one in Alaska, the one off the west coast, stay separated. So what that does is that puts the storm track farther to the north. So we have storms today in this area, heavier rain here in parts of Minnesota over Lake Superior, Ontario, moving into parts of New England. That ridge really protects a large region down here from Texas all the way to the southeast mid-Atlantic, back into the Midwest, where we could be, in some places completely dry over the next 7 days. There are storms moving this morning and in through parts of the interior of the United States and the plains. And again, we're going to watch for this cutoff low to potentially deliver some rainfall here to the Sacramento Valley and the California coast over the next few days. But this morning's storms, just to take a quick look at them, a lot of lightning here in Minnesota coming out of South Dakota, North Dakota. We also have a complex of storms coming through parts of central Nebraska. Let's go straight to the high-res NAM to see where this is all going. I'll start you off at 7 a.m. You're going to see that throughout the day today, we're going to watch storms potentially build down a line right here by this afternoon and this evening, stretching from Minnesota back to the panhandles. We still have a lot of scattered storms that are expected to develop today throughout the Intermountain West, coming out of parts of Idaho into Montana and out of Wyoming. But then you see the front that's kind of stalled out here right along the U.S.-Canada border into Ontario. That's where we can also be seeing some heavier rainfall. Playing through to early Friday morning, going through Friday in the midday, and then getting toward Friday evening. Once again, a lot of scattered storms in this area, kind of parts of the Midwest, upper Midwest, associated with that first system. Now at the end of this animation, going through, this would be early in the morning on Saturday, and out there towards Saturday morning. We're going to watch for the tail end of this to bring some showers through parts of the western and central Corn Belt, also back into parts of North Dakota. But then you can see at the end of this where that first trough is now digging here along the west coast. And as it dives, this is going to be the one that could deliver some late weekend and early next week rain to parts of California while we wait on the next trough to come sliding through. So we, again, see a forecast over the next 7 days looking very similar to yesterday's model runs, unlike the early week model runs, which were very wet in this area, so that trend has continued. You can also see in this 7-day precipitation anomaly that the chances of having above normal rainfall here is pretty consistent with the overall forecast. But the wettest corridor runs right in through this area. I want to show you that on the European forecast. Ready? So we've seen through Friday and into early Saturday. So let's pick it up right here where the high-res NAM leaves off. What we're going to watch is a frontal boundary pass through early next week, stretching from the eastern Great Lakes back to Iowa. While that's going on, we have this low that's sitting here just off the California coast. This could be Fiona, and our next low is trying to take shape here with that second wave coming down through parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan. Now what we've got next Monday into Tuesday, if you watch this, is that low deepens while the coastal low spins off of California. And as this all plays out, that could drag a pretty sizable front through us here by next Wednesday. Because of the change in the position of this low, which a week ago and even early this week was forecast to be much farther to the south, there are regions that are now much drier than originally forecast. I'm specifically thinking about parts of Montana where there had been expected to be better rains out of this, but the position has changed considerably. Now, if you notice here on the 22nd, this would be next Thursday, that front slides through, and behind it, high atmospheric pressure comes in. And we need to talk about this because high pressure, clear skies, calmer winds, this is a recipe for frost, possibly in the upper Midwest coming out of the Canadian prairie. I'll show you that in a moment. But it would be this front that could deflect Fiona away. So it's going to be the timing of that front and where Fiona is as to whether or not it gets into the Gulf or gets deflected back out to open ocean. Okay, from there, I want to show you again what we're watching here from the 20th. So here's that cutoff low. Here's the large ridge that's keeping things hot. Well, you notice as we go out here to the 22nd and 23rd. See the deeper trough? That's a relatively higher amplitude feature. In other words, it's cutting deeper into New England, and the high pressure that's going to result on the back side of it just has me concerned that behind that front we could get some cold air in place here. If this gets any deeper, then that risk is going to go up. But as we play this out toward the end of September, we notice the pattern really wants to favor another, ridge that kind of runs through the western Canadian prairie, really getting into British Columbia with a broader trough over the east. And that's going to change that temperature pattern going out there. First, though, I want to show you the week 2 precipitation anomalies given by that pattern. And overall, we see drier conditions from Texas kind of curling through the Midwest, drier just compared to normal with wetter conditions around the Four Corners states. This is Fiona and what could, be coming from Fiona during that time period. A lot of questions about this. But take a look at the temperatures. Starting off today, these are our high temperatures, much cooler in the west compared to a week ago, of course. Then we get out here toward Friday's highs, getting into Saturday. So a lot of late summer warmth in place here across this part of the United States. And then it goes back to midsummer warmth. That's Sunday's high temperatures when the ridge is fully established. Monday, again, we're looking at triple-digit heat in parts of Kansas, maybe getting into Nebraska. And then as we play this forward out there to Tuesday and Wednesday, this is where the front begins to clear things out. So you can already see evidence of that. Now, through the next 7 days, we don't yet see in the models a forecast of any sort of a frost on the plains, but you can see it here in parts of the higher elevations of Montana and then throughout parts of the west. Could also get dinged with the frost at some point here in the UP of Michigan and also this part of Maine. But what I'm curious about is what happens to those temperatures when we get out there past the 22nd, 23rd, because we know that up until that point, quite warm in the midsection of the country. You can see in the ensembles that between the 21st and 22nd and 27th, that 5-day stretch, that's when the cooler weather's coming in here. Now it's quickly replaced. We kick it out. But the question is, do we get a frost in that time period? So I'm going to be watching for this carefully, but I want to show you that when we look at the probability of having an overnight low temperature below 40, the ensembles are starting to pick up on some of that colder air coming in here. So this again is a probability map of having the overnight lows below 40. So we just want to watch out for that time period. Again, this would be next Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning is what I'm thinking about here, as to possibly having some of that cooler air come in. Now, tonight we'll get all new long-range weeklies. I'll put that in my in-depth report. It'll be out late tonight because I will get home from flying home pretty late tonight, but it'll be there. And one of the other big things we'll talk about is South America, which continues to show a quicker start to the monsoon, especially in Mato Grosso, but drier conditions farther to the south, the same narrative we've been talking about for a while. So we'll get all these new updates out to you again tonight and another quick report in the morning tomorrow. And that'll be the way we'll finish out the week. So I appreciate your attention, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.